about the presentation of the 2023 IBIS methodology, the scope, and the timelines. We want to know what is in line, what is in the 2023 IBIS 1 for us. Let's please welcome Mr. Anthony Cracker to take us through the presentation.
Thank you very much. And so the plan is that after my presentation, then we can discuss the issue of formality, and so that we can, I think there are some people have some questions, but then after my presentation, then we can ask questions on that, if it's okay for the chair. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So I'm Anthony Cracker. I'm the coordinator of IBIS, and I'm presenting I'm going to present on the rationale and status of the IBIS. We'll look at the background and what is new in the 2023 IBIS, and then we'll look at the models in the 2023 IBIS questionnaire and some policy demands and state of implementation. Right. So, over the past 4 decades in Ghana, we've had about 4 economic censuses. Now, as I said, in the past 4 decades, so right from 1987, 2003, and from 2003, we've been quite consistent, and so it's not surprising we want to conduct another one in 2023. So that we can maintain our 10-year cohort. But the first 2 of the economic census conducted in Ghana were purely focused on the industry sector. That's 1987 and 2003. Subsequently in 2013, or others using for 2013, we conducted the first economic census proper across all the sectors. The first 2 in the last 4 decades was purely focusing on industry sector. So in 2013, what we did was to conduct a census across all the 3 sectors, and we focused purely on establishments, to be specific, non-household establishments. But in 2023, that's this year, we to conduct census of all businesses. So we are going to include other areas that we didn't include the last time. So we might not include purely establishments, but other businesses that we think has to be included, taking consideration of our peculiarity as a developing country and the characterization of businesses we have. So we need to expand beyond purely establishments and account for other areas that are heavily in the informal sector that we need to account for. Over the years, we've been collaborating with key stakeholders. Many of you are here. That's Ministry of Trade Industry, formerly small-scale enterprises, at NBSS, National Board for Small Scale, now Ghana Enterprise Agency, and many of the academic East and the rest. So we've done a lot of collaborations over the past. Okay. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen the statistics. I've seen it in our reports that the total number of businesses in Ghana for 2003 census. The last economic census was 638,000. And of course, we had non-household agriculture activity, which was only about 2,800. Services was the majority, about 527,000. Industry was about 108,000. Of course, the greatest jump we had was in the industry sector, because the service sector, we didn't have anything to compare with. But comparing what we have from the industry sector, it could have been possible that the service sector would have also quadrupled. But we had the quadrupling between the industry sector quadrupling between the 2003 and 13, over the 10-year cohort. Now, this distribution, you can see that was mainly from the, in terms of the industry, was mainly from the manufacturing, which had a quadrupling from the 23,000 to about 99,000, with a few jumps here and there from the other sectors. But the question then is, with 2023, what are we going to get, which we do not know. But we expect that we're going to get something in the range about 2 million. So, but by how much, we don't know. But with our projections, hopefully, we should get something bigger than around 2 million, 2.6, hopefully. What would the agriculture sector be? We do not know. But of course, that is why we are there to going to conduct the census. And then the other sectors as well, we do not know. But again, there's a need to conduct another census for which we'll be able to know the exact numbers that we're going to get from this, that these subsectors represent, in terms of what is the total number of agriculture establishments we have in this country. What's the total number of establishments in services, and what the total number of industry establishments. What's the total number of establishments in the industry sector? And so there is a need to move into 2023 and see what the dynamics will be, as we expect some drastic changes. Though we had COVID, that some firms died, but we still expect that we should have some increase in number of firms. Right. So a similar analogy goes for the distribution in terms of size. We had about 509,000 small micro establishments the last time. In fact, you see that, as a developing country, it's expected micro being large, a lot of them, and then we have the small and medium and large being the smallest number of firms there. But again, what is it going to look like in 2023? We do not know, and we need to know for the sake of policy, for policy to be able to address specific issues. Now, also how the cake will be like in terms of the pie charts, we do not know, but this is what we had for 2013. It's expected that the distribution may change, but we do not know what we'll be going to get. But we need to know for the purpose of addressing, for those of providing evidence-based data for policy. Now, the same analogy holds for the firms that, the ownership, in terms of ownership. We all know that in terms of the distribution, non-Ghanaian ownership, in terms of the large firms are largely owned by non-Ghanaian ownership, the non-Ghanaians. And in terms of the Ghanaian and non-Ghanaian firms, same. And Ghanaian firms, normally, there's micro and small and medium scale firms are owned by Ghanaians. And we don't know how the distribution will be in terms of by 2023, as we're going to measure. And clearly, we need to know so that we will to measure government policies over the period as we try to grow the Ghanaian. We're trying to encourage more Ghanaians to own firms and contribute to the rural development of the country. Now, what does the IBIS seek to achieve? First is that we need to update an online business register. The main purpose of IBIS, the first one, is to produce an online business register and update it regularly. We had our previous business register, as I said, in 2013, but now we need to move beyond just and make sure that we have an online business register that we can update regularly. A business register that have very good structures in terms of the parameters that are required to have to be able to enable us update it regularly. And so that is one of the major objectives and also to update the categorization in terms of which sectors they are, the sizes and all that. We need to update because, of course, as I showed you earlier, we've seen that we've seen some statistics, but we need to update it to be able to inform policy. Now, we need to also to profile the distribution of business by the demographics. Where are the businesses? How are they? Where are they located in terms of the districts, the regions, and the localities? We need to know so that will also inform the business growth policies that government. We all know that government has been touting the issue of one district, one factory. But then these census data will provide us that basis to be able to understand whether that program is actually yielding the intended purpose. And so we will know, and there's the literature that says that typically firms in developing countries do not live beyond their 6th birthday, typically, because most of them die before their 6th birthday. And so we need to know what it is now in terms of the distribution by age, by size, and all that. We need to know. And also to be able to establish the business growth goals and products and buying their drivers. As a developing country, we do not have enough resources. And so sometimes you have to do targeted policies where you target some areas that you think that the country has a competitive advantage for which to be able to enhance growth. Now, which sectors, for instance, would drive that growth? We do not know. But if you would provide adequate data to show how robust some sectors have been over the period, for instance, then, of course, that could be an indicator for high competitive advantage for which government may want to invest or put in more policies that will drive the growth of that area, those subsectors. And so there's a need to be able to do this census consistently as we want to do in 2023, to be able to inform policies in that direction. And the net worth of the country or businesses as well is very important. And the structure of businesses over time, that will inform how structurally we are changing over the period. Are we still agrarian? Are we now more into manufacturing, or are we more into services? Of course, we all know that the literature will tell you that the industry sector has the highest linkage in terms of both forward and backward linkage, where you want to see grow. When the industry sector is doing well, of course, you expect the services sector and the primary sector, which is the agri sector, to do well because it has the highest total link, overall linkage in terms of link with the other sectors. So if that is a final objective of government to ensure that the industry sector has been growing or is growing over a particular period, we're going to measure that, and so that will inform government policies in trying to review government policies. I mean, we are not going to do it, but we provide the data so that government can inform all those policies moving forward. Those are just the broad objectives, as I just mentioned. Now, what is new in IBIS 2023 IBIS 1? What is new? The previous IBIS focused purely on non-household establishments. We look at only for establishments. So we know, and as our colleague from ISA said earlier, there was the household survey complements the non-household part where the firms survey the IBIS came to be. But this time around, we've noticed that there's a huge aspect of the informal sector that we don't have captured. For instance, we're talking about businesses in open spaces but fixed locations. These are businesses that you find in around the market, for instance, or around the market, sometimes on the streets. Those of us from Accra, you notice that Maran Mokola before around the electricity area, you find a lot of businesses our market men, we just have some small table. Yeah. So we are including all those ones now in these IBIS. We're also including all establishment instructors, purpose not for those activities. For instance, you find that there are churches that are in classrooms, for instance. And so we're going to include all those ones. And there are some makeshift businesses like night markets that just spring up and all that. So we're going to include all those ones in the, and also establishment that sheds. Typically you find somebody, coconut seller, just mount a shed, post, and is doing business. So we're going to include all those ones. We did include them previously, but we have to include them this time around too. We have a comprehensive picture of all businesses in the country. And our great enemy, the virtual businesses, you cannot see them. Everybody is doing business now all over. So we are going to include the virtual businesses or online businesses, as you call them, this time around. And of course, we are going to try our best. So we are going to include mobile businesses. We are going to include virtual businesses. I was talking about virtual business. You can't see. Sorry. What I was talking earlier was the virtual businesses, the online businesses. We want to include mobile businesses as well. So this is new. In terms of the scope, these are the new areas that we are including into the 2023 IBIS. Now, what is new again? We are, this time around, as my professor, the government statistician said earlier, we trying to link the businesses to the population registers. And that conversation has started. We will continue to see how best we will to link our population register with the business register. So it's some discussion that have started. We've not concretized it yet, but it's something that we are going to do in 2023 IBIS. And also to link the business register with the register of the database of MDAs. Of course, this is the surest way of trying to update our register between inter-census periods, so that you have a live register that will reflect the population of the country, of businesses of the country at all times. And so some of the MDAs will include the district assemblies, because when it comes to informal businesses, they are the best that we can always rely on to update. It's going to be a very daunting task, but surely that activity we have to do to be able to update our register regularly to update to get it live. Of course, this we are doing now. We didn't do it the last time because the last time we conducted IBIS was purely a paper base. But now that we are going to use the CAPI, the tablet, we are going to take the GPS of all establishments and of all businesses. The GPS locations of all establishments and all businesses will be taken. And we are going to automate data collection and analysis procedures to ensure that we minimize errors and we are more efficient and we release results on time. There are some two additional models that have been added to the questionnaire. That's on digital finance and on environmental responsiveness. Environmental responsiveness probably looks at how firms adapt to the green environment, how they adapt to green policies and all that. But these are just a few questions and as I said earlier, the IBIS one provides a framework. So it gives you snapshots for which you can say this, and for instance, if we say an establishment is practicing a green activity, we would to know that. But going forward, we now have to collect detailed information, because there's a plan for us to account for the environment in our GDP. And so we need to do this to be able to provide a complete framework from which you can sample for the second phase and make sure you collect data on the green environment. Same with it. Right. So in the IBIS 1, you find that there are about 9 sections. And first one, of course, gives you provides information about the establishments, the name and all that, and then head office information, principal activity, employment data, records of the establishment records, identification of the green and the finance, and providing and the turnover. Now, here, the information about the head office. This time around, we didn't do in the previous IBIS, but we're going to do it now, where we're going to link the establishments at the enterprise level, because the business register is supposed to be an enterprise business register. And so for all subsidiaries and all branches, will be linked to their mother establishment, the legal unit, so that we can have an enterprise register in IBIS. And for our classification for small and medium scale. Now, the last time we only rely on number of persons engaged, but this time around we need to account for the turnover. I heard you when you were talking about the 1 million and all, and I think that's quite huge, but we don't have a choice than to have a discussion on that. Now, the policy demands for IBIS 1. Clearly, the IBIS 1 data is being collected to address a lot of policy issues. Key among them, we just identified these 5, but there are a lot of them that we can talk about. The first one is the intervention based on characterization of businesses. Where are the small businesses? How do you target small businesses for which you want to input interventions? And also business support, business center support. We just had a COVID, and we know that the government rely on MBSSI for data, but we need to have far more detailed information about the firm so that the targeting will be more specific. And then also, clearly shocks will come. Shocks are likely to come. Shocks is not the fault of any business sometimes. That's why they're called shocks anyway. But how do we provide directives to you to moderate the impact of these shocks on businesses, and to ensure that businesses are able to do well or be able to have minimum effect when shocks arrive, and also to be able to provide knowledge of trends and patterns to predict the outlook of businesses and the contribution of business to economic outlook. So these are policy issues that we believe strongly that, to a large extent, broad policy issues that we believe that the IBIS should be able to address. If you look at these areas, you'll notice that the 5 issues that I talk about, for instance, if you talk about the business center support, we know that the IBIS will provide data for targeted support for businesses during the shocks, for instance. We know that government will be able to rely, or any other DP will rely the data for promotion of priority businesses, and also for data for other sectors, so the financial sector. So clearly, from these 5 poles, or these 5, we will have data all around to support these policy issues, to be able to enhance the growth of businesses and the development of our nation. If you can't do issues of business and data analysis, we know that yes, the data provide patterns that will be able to enhance, provide knowledge about which firms are doing well and how firm growth and all that. So we are very sure and very optimistic that the data that IBIS 1 will provide will go a long way to address a lot of policy issues. When it comes to benchmarking our economic indicators, the IBIS 1 is going to serve as the framework for which we will to rebase the GDP, for instance, and also rebase the producer price index and the index of industrial production, all produced by Ghana's Ascar Service, and also other alternative measures for economic performance. And it provides a very good framework for other surveys to be able to understand the economy. For instance, during the shock or the COVID, many of you remember, if you could recall, we conducted a lot of surveys on the business tracker trying to track the impact of the COVID. And all IBIS 1 provided the IBIS provided a framework from which you have to sample these firms. And so it's quite, in terms of use of the data and its impact, quite extensive. Now, where are we with IBIS 1? We've done so many things. We are still doing so many things. We continue to do so many things. We have finalized the instruments, although we will have to consider the suggestions from here. And as the government secretary said earlier, from here we're going to meet the policymakers and we'll take on board their suggestions as well. And where there's a need to include some questions into the instruments, that could be done, though the instrument has been finalized. The country has been zoned because a business survey or a business census, it's not like a population census where you have so many human beings within an EA. We use the population census framework, but then we have to now collapse a lot of areas to be able to have adequate number of businesses for a sense of workload management. And so we have to rezone the whole EAs in this country, 51,902 EAs. You have to rezone them into what you call enumeration zones so that to be able to do proper workload management and ensure that the enumerators will complete their work on time. And that has been done. We have also finalized the recruitment. I'm sure some people may be thinking, can I bring somebody now? Hopefully, it's too late now. So, and also these activities are ongoing. We are still, as I said, though the questionnaire is finalized, we are taking input from you. We are going to take it from policymakers, and clearly we are going to continue the review until full work is started. The electronic instrument is also being reviewed. Training materials are being reviewed. The full strategy, materials, publicity, data quality materials are being reviewed. The tabulation plan is ongoing to be able to ensure that we align the policy objectives that I just talked about and make sure that all the policies that we talk about can be properly addressed with the data that we collected. Right, so we've done a lot of activities, and we are having this meeting today. This is part of the publicity advocacy team to be able to get feedback. We've done a lot of activities. Hopefully, we should be able to, hopefully, we are working hard. Hopefully, we'll be able to come out with the results by December. Inshallah. So thank you very much. Okay, so just a quick one to add to what my colleagues from Trade said. In Ghana Statistical Service, so we just set the tone for the discussion for the informality. In Ghana Statistical Service, over the period, what we've been doing in terms of measuring formal businesses, a formal business has, from our perspective, we focus well on registration. And the last time, we wanted to be a little tight with the definition, so we said, then we are adding, you have to have a formal account. In other words, you have some way of making sure that you are taking accounts, daily accounts of your activities. And so registration is key from our perspective. So I think that is just to provide how we measure. When it comes to the household perspective, where in terms of whether somebody is employed, what the employment arrangement, whether you are a formal employee or informal employee for an established, there are other parameters. For instance, do you have a formal contract arrangement? Is your employee paying social security and all that? But when it comes to the establishment, the business side, it is purely an establishment which registered and has a formal account. And you know that you can be an establishment which is registered, you have a formal account, but yet you have informal workers because you just engage them like contractors. Typically, a contractor, somebody who wants to get a contract from government, can just go and register his business. The business is a formality, but it could be possible that all the employees are casual workers. It's not paying social security and all that. So, an establishment can be a formal establishment, yet have informal workers from our meeting. So, this is just to provide some perspective for what we have been doing, so that if the chair agree, then when we are going to have a deep discussion in terms of how you measure formality, we'll be able to look at all that. Thank you very much.
Let's please put our hands together for him again. We are fortunate again to have the Deputy Government Statistician to chair the rest of our program for us. So, Chair, with your kind permission, can I please ask maybe participants for questions, or 2 or 3 questions, then we'll address it, then we'll move forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hello?
Okay, thank you so much. Just a quick question. With the way you define the formal firm, I want to know, you said the firm is registered, has a formal account, is tax compliance. Is the definition, if you have to tick all these boxes before it is formal, or if you tick one is sufficient? So that's the first question. The second question is about the informal firms. Are they illegal firms, or these are businesses operating in otherwise legal activities, but except that they are not registered or have work? I think we need to clarify that. Otherwise, where there's a dark blur area where illegal firms could be considered as informal firms. I don't think that's what we are capturing. Thank you.
Thank you. Francois, a question. Okay, my question goes to, listen, I want to ask a question to Ghana Enterprise Agency. Based on your definition for a formal establishment or a formal firm, one, you said it should be registered. Secondly, registered of an regulatory agency. Then keep proper system. Can you just give some of the examples what it means by proper system? Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I would want to touch on, the presentation by the Minister of Trade and Industry. In terms of classification of businesses into small, micro, and large, I just want to find out what is the basis of the turnover classifications. So you have $25,000. Less than that for micro establishment. I think it's really big. I mean, you're gonna have almost all the businesses here fall under it. So I think I'll be interested in learning how you arrive at that particular threshold. The other thing has to do with, I do agree with what my senior man said in relation to how you classify formal firms versus informal firms. Are you gonna tick all boxes before I become formal, or are you gonna take A or B, right? So if you take one, then it's fine. I think that also needs to be clarified. And in terms of the GSS data collection, the IBIS data collection methodology, am I right in assuming that the first thing you want to do is to do a census like you did in 2013? So you do a census and then follow the census up with a detailed collection of information from selected firms within the system. So just on top of that, I want to find out how you are planning to approach the identification of virtual businesses or online businesses. How are you going to identify them? What strategy are you going to use to ensure that you get all the online businesses? I see you have you have indicators of what you are planning to, achieve in terms of the number of businesses that are operating in all the various sectors of the economy. So, i.e., you want to be sure that you are covering all, say, agricultural businesses, all manufacturing businesses, and all online or services-related businesses. The approach you're using would very much influence the reliability of the data that you're going to get, especially in relation to online or virtual businesses. So it will be interesting to your thoughts on how you're going to approach that. I think I'll for now. Thanks.
Thank you. We have Monica on. Monica, please, the floor is for you now. So please, can go ahead with your question.
I wanted to find out from Mr. Tony if you could maybe shed more light on, how these invisible businesses are going to be found. And I say this because in our work in IBRI, we have really thought hard about this, and we've had some proud discussions on this already. And we are really happy to, engage with the team as they move forward with this. So maybe if you can shed some light on how they do this, so that we can actually, get in touch with them and, discuss further how we can also make input in the process. Thank you.
We'll respond to the question. So we'll start from Mrs. John.
My name is Philomena Jani. I think the first question was whether all the boxes must be ticked before we classify a particular entity as formal. It depends on what you're going to use the data for. For instance, if you want to support the business to export, and the person has only registered with, let's say, ORC, you have to also look at the type of product the person wants to export, whether it has been certified by GSA or FDA, or whether it is even tax compliant. If you even want to bid for government projects, or you want to, you want to buy tenure, you are supposed to be tax compliant. So it depends on what you want to use the data for. So we can decide that, under this process, we're going to define formality using particular variables. Because Ghana Enterprises Agency is looking at how we can move the businesses from one level to the other to create more jobs. Yes, and these things are very, very important. The variables that I mentioned, very, very important to us. And when we talk about proper systems or proper structures, for instance, if you pick some of the businesses when they are not around, the workers cannot even, sign checks, buy raw materials for the production to move on. So you have to ensure that you have good HR systems in place. That is where Mr. Kaka was talking about whether you are even paying SNIT for your staff. Do you have marketing strategies in place? Do you even have a strategy as a business? So we have to look at all these things. And if we realize that the business is running efficiently and is not around the owner, sometimes there are even medium enterprises, but when the owner is not around, certain things cannot be done. So these are the, when we say proper structures, these are some of the things that we look out for. Thank you.
So thank you. When it comes to virtual businesses or the online businesses, the Ghana Statistical Service has to have two plans in mind. One is that we are going to collect data. We are going to send enumerators to every place of the country. Now, they are going to every structure and ask questions whether there's a business, there's a business activity ongoing in that structure. So you go to that structure. Do you have business activity going on in that structure? If there are business activities going in that structure, then you proceed to enumerate. So if there's a virtual business activity going in that structure, it's still a business activity to be captured. When we finish the data collection, we have our colleagues from GRA who have given data, very good data on virtual businesses in the country. So we will have to now validate what we have with what they have given us to ensure that, at least from the formal point of view, from formal business point of view, those who have registered, of course, if you have not registered, you cannot be to build GRA. For those who have registered, at least to the best of our knowledge, are in our database. So that is the plan. Yes, your question will ask, so what about the informal ones that are virtual? The underground economy, it's difficult to get there. But at least, to the best of our knowledge, this will give us the opportunity to collect data from every business that is virtual. So, unless you have any other question on that, I can see. Okay. So, maybe, okay. So, but do you understand what I said? Okay.
Okay, and so within the Ghana Statistical Service, our mandate is to provide official statistics, right, for the country. But with the trend of things moving on, we just don't provide just official statistics there. Now there are new wave of data where we have experimental. And so just as I did mention previously, the 1987, within our mandate, within 2 to 3 years after a population census, we have to do either a business or, let me say, economic census. And so we have tried to maintain it. Now, previously, it did mention that we stuck to the former businesses. But with modern terms, when you come even to a computation of our GDP, when you only look at the former, just as all the presenters showed, I mean, it means that only big companies and then the large chunk of Ghanaians who are into these kind of activities, we don't even capture them. And so for us, for the census, we are covering everything. And how are we covering it? That's why he did mention that we have zoned the country into the E-zones that we are going to use. A numerator goes there, has a paper or on the tablet questions. We are asking whether any form of enterprise do exist. And then if you say yes, so we capture all, so that one will give us information about all forms of businesses within the country, both what you may define as formal or informal. When it comes to the sample is most likely we will follow the traditional system where we have official statistics. But at least we have provided for people to understand that experimental statistics showing that these informal businesses, how do we go about these ones, also to capture further information about these ones. And so we will not just give the country only the official statistics and say maybe they are so and so businesses and this is formal and leave the rest hanging, or don't even talk about that at all. And so we'll give the information, but again, in terms of the sample survey, we will select from the ones that we can do those final analysis in there. And so that's why we are putting an index in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Business actually runs. You can't hide. So we have changed our system, our way of doing things. So what he has said is very, very true. And be convinced. Are you? No, when you say you are convinced, then we can go on.
Thank you very much. We take the next set of questions. Yes, so it's a question. So I don't know if it's a question or suggestion. Morgan, please.
Yes, thank you.
It's a
so
contribution.
Much. I just wanted to, here, sorry, let me lower my hand. So I just wanted to follow up on the clarification about the sampling of, these newly added business categories like mobile, virtual, So my understanding so far is that the plan is to approach every structure. And I just wanted to really reiterate again, I think there's a difference between informality and invisibility. And what I hope was clear from our presentation is that there's a really large portion of the economy that's just invisible with respect to just approaching structures. And so what we're advocating for, and we're really happy to talk more about, is that we think that a very efficient and effective way of finding these invisible businesses is to also include approaching households specifically. And this might be a really productive way of finding these invisible businesses that could be both formal or informal.
Monica, we'll save the, okay.
Okay, so
it's a question. I believe yours is contribution.
It's a small contribution.
So we'll have a question, maybe then after that we.
Okay, thank you very much. Mine has to do with a question. And then one, when Mr. Anthony was doing the presentation, he made a point that their main objective is to register business online and update. May I know how would that benefit the business or businesses? Me as a business owner, if you register my company or you identify and profile me, how would that benefit me? Now, in the media, we also do something called follow-up. When you publish a story, sometimes we decide to follow up the story and see how the story will end. Now, GSS, when you produce your data, it is for the stakeholders, government for that matter, to utilize it. May I know you have a policy or you have a way of monitoring how the policy or the stakeholders implement or use your data to benefit Ghanaians? How do you monitor? If you monitor, do you have a report how your data has been used over the years to the benefit of Ghanaians, so that we know that at the end of the day, your data produce a tangible result?
Thank you very much. You received a contribution.
It's a small contribution. I think the subject of formal and informality has been extensively discussed. But what I want to add is that for the purposes of our work, I would expect that we would drill down further to establish formal and informality. It's not sufficient to say there are a number of things we will look at. You tick, 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 and at the end of the day, we should be able to conclude if indeed we are formal or informal. I think we should take that into consideration.
Thank you, Mr. But can you expand it? Because you spoke general and it's quite...
There's a growing appetite for businesses to operate informally because of the harsh environment. So if you set out on IBIS to collect data, somebody says, I'm informal, then you tick. I don't think that is what we are talking about. So I just want to align with you that there will be a set of questions that will zero down to that conclusion.
Thank you. Answer two questions. One on the benefits of IBIS to the business community, and another one, visibility. Let me start with the second one. The visible businesses, as we refer to them, I guess they are the same as businesses that operate in their residential premises, but you do not see. Clearly, as we said earlier, we are visiting every structure and asking if there is a business activity ongoing in there. If they don't tell us, we cannot go in. We don't have the mandate of the police to enter anybody's room. But if they tell us there's a business, we enumerate. And so if we do not see, and hence they are invisible, if they tell us, like for instance, somebody baking bread in his hall, we'll capture. Somebody who does a lot of IT stuff, program in his room, and that's his business. He tells us, oh, there's somebody here who does programming for people. We will have to talk to that person. So all the invisible business, unless they don't tell us that there's a business ongoing, we'll capture. Now, for the business community, IBIS, the importance or rather the benefit is so much to the extent that it can help the business to increase its competitive advantage. Why do I say so? You know where your competitors are. With the IBIS, you'll be able to know the distribution of firms, where the firms are, what they do, and all that. You'll be able to know where you can easily get raw material, for instance. You can easily know where your, in terms of the supply chain, where those who uptake, those who will kind of buy from you. So in terms of the value, you'll be able to know in terms of the locations where they are and whom they are and all that. And also, it's going to help you to be able to know in terms of the population of businesses that you will need to relate to in terms of competitiveness. So there's so much benefits that comes with IBIS. I mean, if you are going to produce, for instance, input for firms, where are the firms? Who are they? You have to know. If you do not know, you'll be in the dark. And the one who knows and have the data will take advantage of these data and be better off than you. And so in terms of profitability, how profitable firms become, it will enhance their profitability because they have an edge, have good data to plan and implement, and have targeted markets where they can easily have high turnover. So the benefits of IBIS is both good to us Ghanaians because, of course, if our businesses are doing well, they're going to employ more people. If they employ more people, unemployment will go down. If they're able to produce more, output goes up, the economy will do well, and will not go to IMF and beg for 2 million. And so, if the businesses are doing well, then we'll leverage on that and we'll do better as a country. So, there are so many advantages and benefits that these IBIS can bring on board to businesses. And for policymakers, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of them. And all these policies that government can use the data for will benefit the businesses themselves. And business benefits we the citizenry. And so it's both beneficial to government who will implement policies that will benefit the businesses themselves and aid their growth and development. And the business itself can use the data for effective planning that will enhance their competitive advantage for them to gain more revenue and more profit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. Please, do you have any questions or suggestions? Or is there any question, please? Those online.
So I just wanted to remind my colleagues from the Ministry of Trade and Industry to kindly address the question in relation to how they arrive at the threshold for classifying firms by size, so i.e. small, micro, and large enterprises. So how did you arrive at that?
Thank you very much. There was a lot of engagement with the businesses. We did a lot of stakeholder engagements. We looked at what is happening in other African countries before arriving at these values. But this is found in the MSME and entrepreneurship policy, the National MSME and Entrepreneurship Policy. But we have to go to Parliament for regularization. So when we got there, they have revised some of the values. So we are yet to get approval from Parliament before we use it as a national definition, because we had to deal with almost all the stakeholders. Yeah, thank you. So this is a draft.
Thank you very much. Chair, with your kind permission, we'll take the next set of questions, then we'll bring the curtains to this important meeting to an end. Please.
I don't know, Fred, if they can respond to it. Okay. Okay. Yes, because we are talking about, business, small businesses in Ghana. Yes, I just want to see how best you can link that to a department headed by the ministry, deputy minister, called Trade. How Ghana business at the local level will benefit from that? How are you promoting small business in Ghana through that department, international trade? If you can explain to us.
I humbly request that our questions should be studied on the IBIS presentation. So please, thank you very much for your question. If it's IBIS, we'll address it. Is it related to IBIS?
How do you say a firm is not formal? Because based on the question that the doctor, I don't know, I've forgotten your name, that he gave, you say depending on what you want to use the data for. You gave us 5 categories. So in general, how do you say a firm is formal and a firm is informal? Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier on, we look at all these variables because as GE, we want to support the businesses to move from the informal sector to the formal sector so that they can trade effectively with others within the country and outside the country as well. So we do diagnosis of the businesses. Before we even provide them with intervention, we have needs assessments or enterprise diagnostics. And we look at these areas, the management areas, the HR and everything, whether you've registered your business, whether you have proper financial systems in place and all that. And based on that, we come up with training programs and support for these businesses. So for us, we look at these areas so that we'll measure and say that we've been able to support a particular business from level A to B. So these are some of the indicators. We have a lot of indicators that we use, but these I've mentioned a few.
You've seen the IBIS questionnaire. Sorry, I think you've seen the IBIS questionnaire. Yes, and we have registration, and we use those formal accounts as the firm that we call it formal.
Are you talking about record keeping?
Yes, proper record keeping. Yeah, formal record keeping, and those who are registered. Then looking at what you are saying, the 5 steps that you've given us, the 5 procedures. In this case, we are going to have different definition for formal and informal firms. And that is why, I think that's why this discussion came up. So that's what I'm asking in general. So assuming there's a firm that is registered, the firm keep proper accounts, but maybe what you talk about proper systems, maybe they don't have it over them. Then you talk about relation of a bank, definitely, so far as you're ready, maybe have a bank account or something. Then, based on this 5, if the person satisfies 3 of them, is the firm still informal? Or that is what we want to know, so that, going forward, we can also know what to do. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
At the technical committee level, we can address this issue extensively and agree on certain parameters to classify a business as formal or informal.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to speak to the issues about the recommendations that are raised in the 3 presentations that we had today, and how the GSS will be approaching that by way of, reflecting those recommendations into the new instrument for the IBIS. I got a sense that, my senior man said the questionnaire instrument has been finalized, but there's still some flexibility around incorporating new questions in it. So I want to know, would there be another round of discussion to look at the recommendations in detail, or you'll be asking people to maybe write directly to the GSS on some of the issues that they think is worth considering by way of the data collection?
Thank you so much. I think we should make it clear that for IBIS, there are 2 elements in the IBIS. IBIS 1 is a census. And what you needed in the IBIS 1 for us to put in there is the GPS, and we say it's already in IBIS 1. The turnover and other, for you to go through the instruments, get through almost everything is there. The detailed things you are asking is at the sample survey component when we have finished the IBIS 1, and that is 2024. We are hoping to finish the whole census, give the picture of what the business register online or all the updates we want to give, provide those ones. We do a sub-sample and go into further detail in what he has suggested. And when you finish your presentation, he did mention that these comments are useful to us because it helps us in the second level. And again, very useful to us. If it's not useful, I think this meeting would not even have been held. Why? Because we have just sat in our corner and said, okay, this is our instrument, we are presenting it. But we gave the opportunity that let those in academics, people who use the information, how useful is this information? That's why you had your presentation and showing us the outcome, possible things you can do with it, and things that you suggest that we put on board. But the first wave of the first phase is the census. And the census, we need to just get into detail, or we need to get all businesses. That will be our frame. And from there, we take it up. But for the first thing, to be able to link the business register with population register, that's why we said that we're trying to deal with our own census. However, in the population census, we could not go out there and do it right now. Why? Because during the census, we did not tell individuals that when we finish, we'll link your information to other things. And therefore, in this business register, when we do it at that level, that's why we're asking for explanation whether when, is it Boachi? Sorry, your name, Michael or something, made a presentation and he said that the locality and the business name, wanted to find out whether it was individual business name. Because if it is individual business name in there, then we have breached our mandates. And therefore, when we take the GPS and say locality and districts and map it those ones, yes, we have not mentioned individuals' names so that we're able to trace it to that level. And therefore, the information you've given us, very useful. What we are trying to say that at the first level is what we want to share with people for us to understand that we are not just going there for either formal or informal, anything we call business. Whether you think you are visible or not visible. Before, we're looking for only those that were in structures with confined rooms and everything. Now, open shed. Even we're trying to look at the hawkers and see that if those people have a permanent place that they operate, we are trying to see and mop up to know that what is the total number of businesses within the country. So that's the first level. We'll move on. So your comments are very useful to us. And so please, our doors are always open. And just as the technical committee, they meet and they agree on what should be done. Why? Because our mandate ends when we finish producing the data. But we try to ensure that those people who are into policy or who formulate things for the development of the nation buy in and they accept what they want to be seen in the document, and then we'll go forward with that one. So your comments have been well taken. We'll embed them and then we'll level, and any further conversation we need to take, we'll also engage and then take up on that one as well. And so since the microphone is with me, I want to say a big thank you to all our presenters. Just as we did mention, our mandate as the National Statistical Institute to ensure that we provide official statistics that will lead for development. And therefore, if users or potential users or people who can affect policy use it and give you feedback, we find it that it's very encouraging for us to know that our work is being used or people are appreciating it. A gentleman asked the question of whether how do we able to assess whether our information have been used. And so from time to time, every 2 years, we conduct user satisfaction survey. And therefore, people, whoever has been to, even on our website and has used, most of the time we tell you, leave your contact, your email address. And so we send, and then we've had the user satisfaction survey, we sent instruments around, the various, whatever have you used from GSS, how useful and how has it implemented or impacted on what we do. Again, within the MDAs and other things, what we try to do that now we have moved out from our comfort zone. We are now picking every institution's policy document. We try to find out that what statistics do you generate there. And by statistics here, not just putting a figure in there. For example, the Health Summit, one of the things that we take their policy document, they put something as benchmark. And the time they were setting this policy document was 2018 to 2024. Meanwhile, we had DHS in 2014. The marks or the information they were using were quoted from somewhere else. So we had a dialogue with them to point to them that if you're saying you're benchmarking, are we just saying things or things you think you know from somewhere? What information within the country are we using? And again, we are not saying we are perfect. That is why we subject ourselves so that people will assess us. We also assess ourselves, and then we come back to the drawing board to see how we can improve and get information in that direction. And so to stress today's engagement, we want all of us gathered here, including the media, including all our partners here, that it is not just for Saskar service, it's for the country. And those academicians here, those ministries, departments, agencies who are presented here, these are the people who will use the information, so they must know what goes in there. They must tell us this is how we want it, and then we will gather that information so that it can be used. And again, to our media partners, you have always been with us and you have been our mouthpiece. That when we share this kind of information, you are the ones that carry it out there. So IBIS is being rolled out. IBIS, we hope to go to the field within the next 1.5 months, and I believe that the coordinator will speak more to it. And so we're working around the clock, and we know that you'll be our mouthpiece to be able to ensure that other people get on board. We become instruments of change and let people, so that when you have a business, you don't lie to us that there's nothing in here and we'll underestimate. So we will entreat that all will help us so that the technical committee, the steering committee, and will help us so that we'll be able to ensure that this activity is well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Faustina Ingwo, the Deputy Government Statistician. We welcome Dr. Sam Mensah to give us the closing remarks. Please, let's put our hands together for him, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Sam Mensah. I'm the country advisor for the International Growth Center, IGC. I just want to acknowledge the very cooperative relationship that exists between Ghana Statistical Service and IGC, and that has been borne out here. We hope to continue with this relationship and grow it. Let me also say thank you, a big thank you to the presenters and all of you who have been here and made contributions to make this a successful event. Thank you.
We'll now welcome Patrick to give us our closing remarks. I think we have been sitting for long, so please, sorry, closing prayer. So please be upstanding as we receive our closing prayer.
Let's be upstanding and be in the prayer mood. And you bear with me how successful this program has been. And so we say, Almighty God, we thank you for bringing us here for this wonderful program. We started with you and we are closing with you. And so we say we thank you for making this meeting a success. We would not have been possible without you. And so we say thank you once again. Everything that has been learned today, the ideas, the thoughts, questions to improve our 2023 IBIS will be taken in good faith. And so, Lord, finally, as we are living here, grant us traveling mercies so that when we meet again, we give you glory and adoration. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Let's all say amen.
I humbly request that the media will meet Mr. Tony Cracker for a short engagement. Or also request that will be in our seat. I'm supposed to attend to you. So we can do it outside. Can we do it outside?